After my wife cheated on me with the better brother, my ex-in-laws and parents cut me off. Now they want me back because he left for another woman. A cherished brother beloved by all cast me aside. Yet, circumstances have shifted dramatically. Now they're relentlessly contacting me, desperate for my presence. My brother has left for another woman, and suddenly, it's my duty to step back into his shoes, to fulfill my manly responsibility. I never anticipated sharing this, but recent events have pushed me to my limit, and I need this community's insight. My ex-wife, Julie, 34F, and I were married for 8 years before everything imploded. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and our marriage felt strong and joyful to me. Julie was charming, dependable, and attractive, the kind of person others would envy. We shared aspirations, she consistently supported my career, and everything simply felt right. I truly believed we had something enduring and never, in a million years, imagined how utterly mistaken I was. Growing up, I was always the family's steady anchor. My parents praised me as the reliable, mature son who would make a good husband. My younger brother Luke, however, was the golden child. He was handsome, charismatic, and the life of every gathering. My parents adored him, and he seemed to effortlessly charm everyone he met. I didn't give it much thought. He was my brother and I loved him. My parents' focus always seemed to be on him, but I just dismissed it as typical family dynamics, believing their perfect son perception was just their way of seeing him. Looking back, perhaps I should have recognized the warning signs. Luke was frequently around us because our families were close, and he and Julie got along well, too well as it turned out. One day, I came home early from work feeling unwell. The house was quiet, and I noticed one of Luke's bags in the living room. Initially, I assumed he was just visiting, but as I walked down the hallway, I heard them talking in our bedroom. My heart sank, but I urged myself to stay calm, not to jump to conclusions. However, when I opened the door and saw them, my entire world seemed to shatter. I'll never forget the shock on their faces when they saw me standing there. Felt like a living nightmare. I barely recall the confrontation. I think I was too stunned to process it in real time. I left the house that day, grabbing whatever I could, and didn't look back. That should have been the worst of it, but somehow what followed hurt even more. When I reached out to my parents, hoping for their support during the most difficult period of my life, I was met with absolute indifference. Instead of comfort, they delivered a condescending lecture about the complexities of marriage, and how perhaps I had driven Julie away. They even suggested that Luke was doing her a favor by showing her real love. My own family acted as though I was the one who had erred, that I had somehow pushed Julie into my brother's arms. In the days that followed, things only deteriorated. Julie's parents, with whom I had grown close over the years, sided with her without question. They were completely taken with Luke, treating him like the perfect addition to the family. I attempted to reach out a few more times, but eventually the message was unmistakably clear. I was completely finished. I was utterly alone. Both families stood firmly behind Julie and Luke. To them, I was disposable, easily replaced by someone they considered more suitable for the roles of husband and son-in-law. The divorce process was swift and incredibly harsh. I couldn't bear to keep anything that reminded me of Julie or the life we had shared, so I left most of it behind. I moved into a small apartment, attempting to figure out how to rebuild my life with no support. I lost nearly everyone in my social circle because, thanks to my family's influence and connections, Julie and Luke managed to portray me as the bitter, unstable one, and Luke as the hero who saved Julie from me. Yet somehow I endured. I immersed myself in work and slowly began to meet new people, individuals who knew nothing of the chaos my life had become. I found new friends, a few kind neighbors, and over time, I started to reconstruct my existence. I had always believed I needed my family to feel complete, but I learned that I could be perfectly fine on my own. I discovered a strength and independence I never knew I possessed, and despite the immense difficulty, I was proud of myself for getting through it. Just as I was starting to find a measure of peace, things took an unexpected turn. Out of the blue, my phone began to incessantly ring and receive messages from my parents and Julie's family. At first, I ignored them, thinking it was some twisted joke or perhaps just a guilt-ridden check-in. But the calls persisted, so I finally listened to one of the voicemails. What I heard left me absolutely stunned. Luke had abandoned Julie. He had apparently met someone else, another woman who had captured his attention, and walked out on Julie without so much as a goodbye. Now, with Julie heartbroken, both of our families were frantically trying to piece things back together. And who did they think should fill the void Luke had left? Me, of course. I was the rightful husband, they declared. They actually believed I should return to Julie and resume my place, as if I were some backup plan waiting in the wings. The messages were filled with emotional manipulation disguised as concern. Initially, they pleaded with me to come back and forgive them, but then their texts grew increasingly absurd. They kept insisting it was my duty as a man to give Julie a second chance, that forgiveness would demonstrate my strength. My dad even said it was an opportunity to prove my worth as a son, as if I hadn't already spent years striving to please this family that had so easily discarded me. Julie's family also chimed in, saying she was lost without me, and that I should return to keep the family together. It was as if my own pain, my own betrayal simply didn't matter. All they cared about was maintaining appearances, as though I should somehow just forget that they had all abandoned me. I've been consumed by anger because of this. After everything I had endured, losing my family, my wife, my social circle, these people thought they could just summon me back, as if I owed them something, as if I hadn't been discarded and replaced like an old piece of furniture. And the worst part was, they acted like I should be grateful for the opportunity to return. For a while, I debated whether to confront them. Part of me wanted to scream, to let them know how deeply they had wounded me and how preposterous their request was. But another part of me knew they wouldn't understand. They never saw me as a person with feelings, only as someone who could fulfill a role they needed. Confronting them wouldn't change anything. They'd twist it around somehow, make it about themselves, or accuse me of being overly dramatic. So I've been ignoring the calls, trying to find some peace in the life I've built for myself. But they've been relentless, bothering me constantly. Every few days, another voicemail, another text message, dragging me back to that place of anger and hurt. They don't see me as an individual with my own life and pain. They only see me as a convenience, someone who can mend their chaos. It's been exhausting, and I'm so weary of feeling like I'm the only one who perceives how utterly dysfunctional this all is. Honestly, I know I'm not wrong for refusing to go back, but a part of me wonders if I'm missing something. Should I confront them and try to make them see the damage they've caused? Or should I just block them all and let them deal with the mess they created? I know I've come a long way, but this entire situation has reopened so many old wounds I thought I had healed. So Reddit, what am I supposed to do here? Should I even bother trying to explain to them how much they've hurt me? Or would it just be a waste of time? Update 1. Hello everyone. I wish I could say things have improved, but honestly the situation has only worsened. Since my last post, my inbox has been inundated with even more messages and calls from both my family and Julie's family, making it a nightmare to keep up. My phone buzzes with notifications all day, to the point where I dread even looking at it. I've attempted blocking numbers, but somehow they continue to find ways to reach me, whether through new numbers or emails. It's as if they're determined to wear me down. But what truly took me by surprise was a call from Julie herself. I usually don't answer calls from unrecognized numbers, but this time I did. I thought it might be work-related or perhaps a friend, but the moment I heard her voice, my stomach dropped. It was Julie, and she immediately launched into what sounded like a rehearsed speech. She began by expressing deep sorrow and claiming she had made terrible mistakes. I could hardly believe the sheer audacity of it all. She spoke as if she had merely forgotten to pick up milk on her way home, not destroyed our marriage by sleeping with my own brother. She continued, saying we owed it to each other to work through this, and that our years of history shouldn't simply be discarded. Hearing her say that after everything she had done was like a punch to the gut. The nerve to bring up our 8-year marriage as though it was something I was obligated to cherish. She claimed we both owed each other this chance to reconcile, to pick up the pieces and see if we could find a way back to each other. I almost laughed aloud at the ridiculousness of it. It was as if she believed a few apologies could somehow erase the betrayal, the loneliness, and the utter devastation she had inflicted upon me. She went on talking about how much she missed the stability we had and how she now realized with Luke gone, she truly wanted to settle down. The entire time she kept using words like we, our life, and our history, as if she had any right to talk about us anymore. I just sat there, completely stunned, barely managing to say anything because every word she spoke was just making me angrier and angrier. When I finally interrupted her and asked, "Why now? Why do you care now that he's gone?" She offered some pathetic excuse about realizing what she had lost and how she thought I'd be strong enough to move past it and take her back. Strong enough. As if strength had anything to do with enduring her betrayal. After I hung up on her, the messages from my dad began pouring in, even more relentlessly. They actually had the nerve to say that now that I had Julie begging for forgiveness, it was proof that she was sorry and that I should see this as some kind of victory, or a sign that I should go back to her. My dad even said, "Isn't it enough that she's asking for a second chance?" It made my blood boil. They were talking as if Julie's pathetic attempt at reconciliation was something I should be grateful for, something that should make me feel validated or worthy. They seemed completely oblivious to the fact that I was the one who had been wronged, that I was the one who had been tossed aside like nothing. I kept wondering, how could anything be enough? How could a few words erase everything she'd done? Did they really expect me to just jump back into her arms and pretend that none of it had happened? Out of sheer frustration, I ended up calling Luke. I had no idea what I was even going to say to him. I just needed to express myself. He didn't pick up, so I left a voicemail telling him that this entire mess was his doing and that he should be the one dealing with it. I reminded him that he had shattered my marriage and my life, and that it was up to him to explain himself to our parents and to take responsibility. I was so furious that I ended up sending him an email too, just so he couldn't ignore me. I laid it all out point by point, reminding him of every betrayal, every instance where he could have chosen to stop what he was doing but didn't. I was angry and hurt and I didn't hold back. Of course, Luke never responded. Typical. He had caused this chaos, torn apart two families, and walked away without a second thought. And now he was off with some new woman, probably not even thinking about the destruction he'd left in his wake. He had left me to deal with the fallout while he got to walk away scot-free. And here I was fielding calls and emails from family members who still somehow believed that I was the one who could fix it all. It's like they couldn't grasp the idea that I wasn't some disposable item they could just pick up and drop whenever they felt like it. One particularly awful call came from my uncle, who had always been one of the few people I trusted in my family. He was practically begging me to see reason, and told me that people make mistakes and that real forgiveness means giving people another chance. He told me that as a man, it was my duty to be forgiving, to show grace in the face of hardship. I felt so betrayed even by him. It was like he was saying that my pain, my heartache, didn't matter as much as maintaining some false sense of harmony. I was so shaken up that I couldn't even respond. I just hung up and cried. I wish I could just cut them all off, but it's so hard. Despite everything, part of me still feels tied to them, still craves their acceptance or approval. I know it's not healthy and I know they've shown me who they are, but I can't deny that it hurts. It's like a part of me is still that little boy who just wants his parents to love him unconditionally, even though I know now that they never truly will. And that realization is almost as painful as the betrayal itself. So here I am, feeling lost all over again. I thought I had moved past this, that I had managed to put the pieces of my life back together, but they keep dragging me back. Part of me wants to confront them, to tell them all exactly what I think of their so-called family values. But another part of me wonders if it's even worth the energy. They've shown me who they are. And I know deep down that no amount of explaining will make them see me for who I am or respect my boundaries. But it's hard to walk away completely when they keep pulling me back. Right now I'm exhausted mentally and emotionally. I feel like they're trying to erase everything I've worked for, every bit of peace I fought to find. I know I shouldn't let them get to me, but it's hard. It's so hard not to feel like I'm the one who's somehow in the wrong, even though I know logically that I'm not. Update 2: It's been a few weeks since I last tried to process everything, and honestly nothing has settled down. If anything, it feels like someone hit the gas pedal on the drama, and I'm just trying to hold on. The calls, texts, and emails from my family and Julie's family became so overwhelming that I finally decided to cut them all off. I blocked their numbers, emails, and even their social media accounts. It wasn't an easy decision, but I desperately needed some kind of boundary, any boundary, because my head was spinning. For a few days, I actually felt like I had won a small battle. My phone wasn't lighting up every 5 minutes with another attempt to guilt trip me. And for the first time in months, I could simply exist without their noise in the background. But of course, that peace didn't last long. Nothing about this situation seems to allow me to breathe for extended periods. A few days after blocking everyone, I came home from work, tired and just wanting to collapse. And there he was, my dad just standing outside my apartment like it was the most normal thing in the world. My stomach dropped. I had never told him where I moved after the divorce, so the fact that he somehow tracked me down felt like a huge violation of my privacy. For a second, I thought about pretending I hadn't seen him and just turning around, but I knew that would only delay the inevitable. If I didn't face him now, he'd just keep coming back until I did. The whole thing was so classic dad, like a masterclass in emotional manipulation. He started talking about how the family was falling apart, that Julie was miserable, and that Luke's absence was a wound no one knew how to deal with. He kept saying how family is everything, as if that meant I had some kind of obligation to fix everything just because we were related. He went on about how it was my duty to put the past behind us, because that's what families are supposed to do. He even said Christmas was approaching, and it would be the perfect opportunity to all get together and make things right. I couldn't believe the nerve of it all. This was the same man who stood by while my wife and brother destroyed my life, and now he was asking me to be the one to patch things up. I felt like my head was going to explode. It was so frustrating, but it was also exhausting. I just stood there trying my best to keep my composure while he went on and on about forgiveness and moving forward. By the time he finally left, I felt like I'd been wrung out like an old rag. It was such a painful reminder of where I stood in my family's priorities. Definitely nowhere near the top. That wasn't even the worst of it. Not long after that little ambush, I received an email from Julie. I hadn't heard from her in a while, so when I saw her name pop up in my inbox, it felt like a slap in the face. Her message was short, but it was clearly calculated. She said she understood why I was upset, and hoped we could have a conversation to clear the air. Oh, and just to make it worse, she attached a picture of us from our wedding day. That picture used to make me smile, but now it made my stomach turn. I deleted the email without even thinking twice. There was no way I was going to let her back into my head like that, no matter how sorry she claimed to be. And then just when I thought I'd seen it all, Luke reached out. His email came out of nowhere with the subject line, "I'm sorry." For half a second I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe he's finally going to own up to what he did. But no. His so-called apology was just a pile of excuses. He wrote about how he never meant to hurt me, how his relationship with Julie just happened because they were in love, as if that somehow made it okay. And if that wasn't bad enough, he actually had the audacity to say he hoped Julie and I could get back together. He said he was rooting for us to find happiness again, as if his blessing meant a damn thing to me anymore. I was so angry I could barely see straight. How do you even respond to something like that? Spoiler, you don't. I deleted his email just like I deleted Julie's. There was no point in engaging with someone who was so completely oblivious to the damage they had caused. It felt like they were trying to rewrite history, like nothing had really happened, like their actions had no consequences. But I wasn't about to let them gaslight me like that. These past few weeks have been some of the hardest of my life. The betrayal, the pressure to forgive, the constant manipulation. It's all taken a huge toll on me. Therapy has helped, but sometimes progress feels painfully slow. It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when everything around you seems to keep pulling you backward. But I'm trying. If nothing else, this whole mess has taught me how important it is to put myself first, even when everything else is screaming at me to do the opposite. With the holidays coming up, I know things are going to be tough. The whole family togetherness thing feels like it's going to be shoved in my face at every turn. But for the first time, I'm not going to let that dictate my decisions. I've spent too long trying to keep the peace, trying to make everyone else happy at the expense of my own well-being. It's time for me to take control and make choices that are good for me, even if that means upsetting a few people along the way. It's not easy though. There are still days when the guilt creeps in. I think about all the messages I've ignored, all the people I've cut off, and wonder if I'm doing the right thing. But then I remind myself of everything that happened, everything they did, and I know that this is what I need. I'm learning that I don't owe anyone my peace, my happiness, or my mental health. I'm learning that it's okay to walk away from people who don't respect my boundaries, no matter who they are. The road ahead is still uncertain, and I know there will be more challenges, especially with the holidays looming, but I'm not going to let the past dictate my future. Update 3. Hi everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you for your kind words, advice, and support. Reading through the stories of people who've experienced similar situations has been such an eye-opener. It's comforting to know that I'm not alone in dealing with something as messy and painful as this. It's like finding a safe space I didn't expect. I never thought I'd find a community where I could feel so understood, but here we are. And it honestly means a lot to me. I honestly didn't think things could get any worse, but I've learned that life's pretty good at surprising you, and not always in a good way. Since my last update, things have taken another turn. It feels like every single person involved has decided that they're not going to back down. Instead of retreating and letting me heal, they've just intensified their efforts to guilt trip, manipulate, and pressure me into returning to a situation I've worked so hard to escape. It's like the chaos is never ending, and I'm constantly fighting to maintain my peace. The first major red flag was a letter I received in the mail from Julie's parents about a week ago. At first, I thought maybe this was an attempt at reconciliation or at least an apology for their part in all of this. But no, the letter was nothing but accusations. They went on about how selfish and immature I was for not forgiving Julie and for not putting the family back together. According to them, my refusal to engage was somehow making everything worse for everyone else, as if it was my responsibility to fix a mess that they all contributed to. But the real kicker was at the end of the letter, when they threatened to expose me to our mutual friends. They said if I didn't do the right thing and talk to Julie, they'd ruin my reputation and paint me as the villain. Seriously? What exactly were they going to expose? That I set boundaries? That I refused to forgive a woman who cheated on me with my brother? It was infuriating to say the least, and honestly it just made it crystal clear. I could not trust these people. I had to protect myself from them no matter what. Then Julie decided to escalate things. I was at work one day minding my own business, when one of my coworkers came to tell me that someone was waiting for me in the lobby. At first, I thought it was just a delivery, or maybe a friend stopping by unexpectedly. But no, when I walked out there, she was Julie, standing there like some rom-com protagonist, holding a bouquet of flowers. My stomach sank. It was the last thing I needed, and it felt like the entire world had stopped. Why did she think this was okay? It wasn't even just the flowers. It was the fact that she was at my workplace, my safe space, after I told her again and again that I didn't want her in my life. She completely disregarded the boundaries I had set, acting like a bouquet could somehow fix everything she destroyed. And it wasn't just awkward for me, it was embarrassing. My coworkers were watching, and I could feel their eyes on me, making this whole ridiculous scene worse. Julie, of course, didn't seem to care. She kept blabbering on about how sorry she was and how much she missed me, as though all that mattered was her feelings. She said, "We were meant to be together," as if me standing there, shattered into pieces, didn't prove the opposite. It felt like she was rewriting the story in her favor, playing the part of the heartbroken hero when in reality, she was the one who caused all of this. It was selfish, and honestly, it felt like she was trying to gaslight me into feeling bad for her instead of taking responsibility for her actions. I was so angry, but I had to stay calm. I told her she needed to leave immediately, that this wasn't the place for her apology. She ignored me, so I walked back to my office, shaking with frustration. I locked myself inside, trying to regain my composure. I called security to remove her. I didn't want to escalate things, but at that point it was clear I had no other choice. I had to protect myself again. Later that night, I made a decision I never thought I would have to make. I filed for a restraining order against Julie. The idea of doing this, of having to get legal protection from someone I once loved, was heartbreaking, but I knew it was the only way to keep her out of my life for good. I couldn't just sit around and let her keep showing up, invading my space and making me feel powerless. I had to take control. And my family, they haven't stopped either. Even though I've gone no contact with them, they've found new ways to try and reach me. One of my cousins, someone I haven't spoken to in years, sent me this long message about forgiveness and how everyone missed me. Of course, she didn't mention the fact that none of them cared about me when I was in the middle of dealing with the betrayal. Another distant uncle chimed in with an email about how I needed to be the bigger person and let go of my anger. It's crazy to me that these people, who weren't even involved in the betrayal, feel like they have the right to tell me how to heal. They have no idea what I've been through. But the hardest part, the part that's been the most painful, is my dad. Despite everything, Despite our last confrontation where I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with this mess, he's still trying to guilt me into coming back. A few days ago, he left me a voicemail saying I was tearing the family apart by refusing to forgive Julie and Luke. He didn't even acknowledge the pain they caused me. All he cared about was how my actions were affecting them. It's hard not to feel drained by all of this. Every time I think I'm getting some distance from the chaos, someone finds a new way to drag me back in. But through all of it, I've come to realize something important. I deserve better. I deserve better than Julie, better than the toxic dynamics in my family, and better than the life they tried to force me into. I've moved into a new apartment that they don't know about. I've locked down my privacy even more. New phone number, tighter security on my accounts. It's sad that I've had to go to these lengths, but it's necessary for my peace of mind. Therapy has been my lifeline. My therapist has helped me understand that it's okay to protect myself, that cutting off toxic people isn't just acceptable, it's essential. Progress is slow and some days it feels like I'm barely hanging on, but for the first time in a long time I'm putting myself first. And that's something I've never done before. The road ahead is still uncertain, and I know there will be more challenges, especially with the holidays looming. But I'm not going to let the past dictate my future.